confirmation from an
Okay, well,
outside
it
source.
says it's setting up your meeting and it says it did it. Did anybody get it?
I got it.
I got it.
I
too.
got it.
All right. So we're
Okay, turn
we're
the
about
sound
to
down.
start our show.
Turn the
For
sound down.
anybody tuning in.
Turn the sound down on your phone
Yeah,
and your laptop.
yeah, but
Well, then turn it all
I think I
turn
have
it
to
all
turn
down.
it off. Unfortunately, it's the only way I can monitor Facebook.
Leave it on then. Just leave it on.
So we're streaming. We haven't started our show yet. We're about to. Everybody getting you getting it together, Brett?
I'm trying.
Okay.
He's
All
got
right. Sorry for the delay.
so
It
much.
was my fault, everybody.
Oh, you don't have to apologize.
Well, everyone.
You know, Brent,
Screw up every very once in a while.
there's a thing called headroom, and then you have a thing that I've never experienced before that's called backroom.
Back room.
Back room.
I just made that up.
What about this one?
Headroom.
Like this,
I love that shot.
like that shot. I'm
That's
gonna have
dramatic.
another one too, I think. Let me see. Okay.
3 cameras. Holy mac. What are you switching that with?
An ATEM Mini Extreme ISO.
Oh
Same thing
God, now I
Keith
gotta
has.
buy something else. I have to buy something
Oh, wait a
else.
minute.
Is that what you
Keith, oh, there he is. Well, I don't see him, but I see his name.
I'm coming in a minute.
Is this working?
There's a joke in that, Tina.
Yeah, don't go there.
Yeah.
There you are, I can do what he can do now.
All right.
Oh, you've successfully moved out of the center of the shot.
No, he can fix that easy.
It takes a higher form of technology.
There we go.
Yeah.
The highest form. Okay. Oh, right.
I'm just not a symmetrical person.
There you go.
I've been slightly to the left my whole life.
Ah.
Yeah, that's what you say, but is it
Okay,
real?
so let's see.
Come on,
Are we
let's-
I hope not. Let's do this. Let's do this.
Come on, Tina.
Let's do this.
Oh, let's get on Steve. And, all right, here we go. You can now pin or spotlight multiple people. Oh, we're gonna
Tina,
have to look
we're not
into-
making
we're gonna
any
have to look into
changes.
that feature later. Okay. And mute is off. And we're gonna go in 3, 2, 1, and
Hi, Steve Gilmore. This is the Gilmore Gang. It's Friday in the 21st century, right?
yeah.
Okay. Let's welcome the gangsters. Today we have from Georgia, the state of whatever is about to happen. And that would be Brent Leary. Welcome, Brent.
Let me do this. Hello, and how are you?
Whoa! Whoa!
Yeah. And that only costs $20,000.
We all need one of those. We all need to be able to do that.
Yeah. And then I need to be able to not do it. Okay. So, Brent, everything going well for you?
You know, it's I have no complaints. I'm looking outside. The sun is shining. It's about 65, 70. Nothing to complain about here.
All right.
Joining us from the great state of Great Britain is Frank Radis.
Steve, how are you? Hello, gangsters. I hope everyone is well and safe as I just stretch so you can put in that lower third. I think I've stretched long enough now. So there.
Okay.
Excellent. And somebody should stop the BitTorrent feed. so that you can reclaim some bandwidth. It's pretty good this week, actually.
I think he's buying Dogecoin.
Or making.
I'm minting some cryptocurrency here. Is it me? Is it a problem?
No, it's not. It's just there's a little audio intermittence from bandwidth loss. Okay. It's fine. It's much better than last week.
Okay.
All right. In Palo Alto, California, it's Keith Tier.
Hello, I'm in my blurred background, and you know I can totally mess with Tina's lower third by putting my own lower third up, and I can also do what Brent can do. Hey guys. Nice to
Oh
see
my
you.
God.
Oh, now I'm gonna have to spend. I swear to God, you guys piss me off.
Excellent. Now we're getting into the mood here. So speaking of moody, there's in Massachusetts, there's Dennis Pombriand. Welcome, Dennis.
Who's moody? I can outdo Keith and Brent. Watch, and it doesn't cost $20,000. There.
And lose the
He's
super.
been wanting to do that for at least 2 years.
Oh, here, take it, use it.
And rounding out the team, what happened to Brent? Did he disappear? Yes, he
Oh,
did.
he went to get a kazoo.
Yeah.
This is what happens. Now it's called reboot. All right. Well, we'll bring in from the state of Washington. We'll bring in Michael Markman.
How do you do? This is me, and that's my lower third.
I like your upper third.
Oh, that. Well, funny thing about this, I was working for a company, and we were about to ship a product. They had a T-shirt contest, and the front of it, this is the winner. The back had the date, and we missed the dates, so ship didn't happen.
Oh, you could have just changed a couple of letters. It would have been all fine.
Yes, I think some people did actually when we missed the date.
Oops.
Okay, that's Frank's funhouse effect.
I like it.
Okay, well, we'll just have to hope that Brent can wrestle his way back onto the screen. So last week we had an interesting show, which we decided at the last minute to not air. So there's a sneak peek that Tina rendered, which is my favorite scene from that show. So take a look at that, and it stars Michael Markman and his attempt to describe what comedy is all about. Successfully, I think he was very good about that.
Well, thank you.
So this week we're going to avoid certain subjects, and I have taken on the role of extreme moderator, which is that I will literally explode if something is discussed that I don't want to hear. So
You know
stay
what
tuned to that.
they say about thought police, Steve? Yeah, the thought police are with us at every moment.
That's right. The Gilmore Gang is all about control. There he goes.
Wasn't that the evil force in what, Man from U.N.C.L.E.? Control?
Yes.
Yeah.
Was that control?
That
I
was
love
control.
that. That was
Get smart.
the little shop. No,
Was it Get Smart?
Was it Get Smart? Oh no, really?
Oh.
I liked
Both
Man.
those Dennis.
Yes.
Chaos.
Yeah, Ilya Kuryakin, loved him.
Yeah.
But control it wasn't Control Get Smart. Yes, it was. I think.
It was, yeah.
Oh, it was one of those highbrow shows.
Okay, so that's we're going to talk about what's the
Great
first thing
old
we're going to
shows.
talk about? There's Russia. What about him?
Nothing. It all just goes to show that Mueller was right.
Oh, so nothing means
Oh, we
there
knew
was
that.
collusion, and now we move on.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
we
it.
always
We're done
knew
with
Mueller
questions.
was right. It was just nobody was playing by the rules. I did notice a minute ago
You know,
that Russia just said they were expelling 10 U.S. diplomats from Moscow, which I
Yeah.
guess is like being deprived of rutabaga, but I don't know.
Actually,
I
Moscow is a
was-
nice city. I've been there. I've been to the U.S. Embassy. I did a talk there when Michael McFaul was the whatever they
Ambassador.
call them, the
he's great.
ambassador.
He's
And
great.
I mean, it's an amazing city. It's the subways, the buildings, the food is actually even quite good. So it's not terrible.
Well, this is providing value.
Well,
Yeah.
okay. Here's my question. Why is it? This is probably the most naive question I could ever ask. But why is it? Look at that look on Steve's face. Why is it that Mueller was blown off? I mean, he had the goods. He did the work. Why? What was the reason? Was it just because of the attacks that he was off? Was it because he wasn't vibrant enough in a hearing? What do you think the reason was?
He signed a contract. He wasn't allowed to talk about anything.
No, the Republicans controlled the narrative. That's the problem. They controlled the committees. They controlled the Senate during the impeachment. The Justice Department was led by Bill Barr, who put out a one-page summary of the Mueller report, if you recall, that basically exonerated Bush.
Yes, it was Barr's pre-spin. He imputed things to the Mueller report that weren't there, but he had about 2 weeks before the actual redacted text was published, and the pre-spin took hold.
And Frank, this goes back to something we traded email about this week, which was the whole premise of modern marketing, right?
Yeah.
What-
say it,
what was-
say it, say it a lot.
Say it a lot
It
and
was say
and put it everywhere.
say it a lot and put everywhere.
The other thing that
Which is-
happened was, you may recall that there was some obstruction going on by the White House. Mueller couldn't get all the evidence he needed to prove that there was collusion, and so what he said was unproven. He said, "I can't exonerate this guy, but I can't indict him." So, depending on which side you were on, you either said, "Look, he didn't exonerate him," or, "Oh, look, there was nothing to indict over."
I've missed something this week because I'm wondering why we're talking about this, and I'm sure something happened that I don't know about.
Something happened yesterday. There was a release that supplied the missing link between Kalemnik and Soviet intelligence.
Manafort.
So we knew that Manafort had given something of value to Kalemnik, but we didn't know exactly what Kalemnik did with it, although we knew he had connections to Soviet intelligence. But yesterday, the U.S. asserted that he passed along Trump's campaign strategies and internal polling to Russian intelligence, and that closed the link between Russian interference in the election of 2016 and what was previously known. So that fills in the blank that lets
Now,
us say
wasn't
collusion is
Kalemnik-
true.
Wasn't Kalemnik photographed in the Oval Office?
No, that's Kislyak.
Oh,
Kislyak
Kislyak. Yeah,
was
it's one of
the-
those cases.
Yeah,
No,
Kislyak was the
Kalemnik is
Russian
based in
ambassador at the
Ukraine,
time.
although he's currently believed to be in Russia. So
But he
was-
worked with Manafort. Those guys were like that.
Yes, he was.
Oh
in
my
business.
God, who knew?
Oh no, no,
Well,
no!
that's
You
my
know what?
point.
You know what? The thing you're missing is that they didn't simply work together. Manafort owed Kalemnik millions of dollars, and Kalemnik Manafort gave that information hoping that it would square their relationship, which I don't know if it actually did, but Manafort's not dead because of it, I guess.
Well,
So
I think that it was also that Manafort said to Gates, his partner in crime in this mess, "What do we have to do to make this whole?"
That's right.
And yeah.
Yeah, so
But
Gates was another stepping stone. So it wasn't directly from Manafort to Kalemnik, I think. It was Manafort to Gates to Kalemnik to the GRU.
So
That's
slightly,
a
a triple
perfect.
play.
I was just going to say that, Dennis.
slightly
It was a tr-
facetiously,
Baseball.
the genius of Russian intelligence is that they've got us all talking about them having had any influence at all over any election.
No, I
And
don't
us
think
all
that's why
believing
we're
it.
talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're talking about
I
it
mean-
because Frank brought it up.
that's and boy,
It's
aren't
not-
you guys gonna hate it when I'm not here.
Hey,
You telling
here
us
it
something?
goes.
Don't
Watch
thing
this.
that- the thing
Boom!
Watch out! Boom! Oh, Steve's
Okay.
head blew up.
All right.
Are
So
we saying therefore
what
that
has this
Frank is
got
an
to do
asset?
with- what has this got to
No,
do with
I don't- I
anything
don't
about
think
what's
so.
going on right now?
It's
This
a
is
total,
old news. We knew this happened 2 years ago. We probably knew it 4 years ago. Why are we talking about it now?
Because it's provable. Yesterday gave us proof.
And we're also
Maybe.
talking about it now because it came out in conjunction with the sanctions that the Biden team announced on Russia.
Precisely.
So there was an action. There was a reset of the U.S.-Russian relationship. And as part of that whole communication, this was a little buried nugget that just popped up to the surface.
Okay. Or it was just something to justify the billions of dollars of programming on MSNBC and CNN. What else do they have to talk about? Is there any kind of interesting stuff going on in the world, like about technology, maybe?
well, the huge things this week are the Coinbase IPO, Bitcoin getting to $1 trillion faster than any other entity ever. I think the Black Lives Matter issues and the mass shootings are the two biggest things in politics that I've really been thinking about. The new killing in Minnesota or Minneapolis or whatever it was. I get confused about those two, and then the well, that's the main one. It seems as
So
if
let's go back to the technology issues. What is Coinbase?
so Coinbase is kind of like the NASDAQ, except it trades cryptocurrencies rather than stocks and shares. Although even that's changed this week when Binance, which is like Coinbase, almost as big, has created tokens that track Coinbase shares. So you can
Okay,
actually go
well,
to
I asked
Binance.
you about what Coinbase was, and
So
now
Coinbase is
what
an
is
exchange.
Binance? What?
Binance is another exchange. They're the
Okay,
two
is there
biggest in
any
the
other
world.
company that we're going to talk about in this area?
Those
Banks
are the
are
two
doing it now.
biggest, although I think there's a subsection on Dogecoin.
What is Dogecoin?
Dogecoin is a joke cryptocurrency created by anarchists and hackers as a kind of a satirical response to Bitcoin, which is now worth about $50 billion.
So
That's
what is
some
the
joke.
satirical thing worth?
And the satirical thing is they created a totally meaningless token that genuinely has no function. And it turns out my son Liam has bought $100 worth on Robinhood, and they're now worth 600. It turns out young people are prepared to use Dogecoin as a store of value and as a speculative instrument.
Well,
God, it sounds like
Dogecoin
NFTs.
came out at a time where Bitcoin was in tens of thousands of dollars. Dogecoin came out as just a few cents, so it was very easy for anyone to get in, and enough people got in that the price started to go up. So when it reached a nickel, it was a shock to everyone. I don't know what it is today, but it's
35 cents.
it's up to 35 cents now. So if you know, it's a big gain. It's a huge return on investment.
And it goes to prove that a store of value is whatever you want it to be.
NFTs, would that be an
It's
example?
whatever you want it to be. And then an NFT really is different. It's not a store of value as much
Hi,
as
Dennis.
a symbol of ownership. Over a
I'm trying
thing.
so hard. I'm trying so hard. I
Do you mean to
promise.
stay with us?
I promised myself I will not turn off my video again. But
His fingers on the button.
No, well, the thing
Oh,
is,
wow.
Hang on a
thing is,
second,
Dennis. Dennis,
Hang on a second, Keith.
Oh, go on.
Dennis, let me ask you a question.
I'm just kidding. I'm just adding a little.
Yeah, I
levity.
know, but I'm trying to remove the levity. Can you tell me what your beef is with NFTs
What
specifically?
my beef is with NFTs?
Like just a straight answer.
I don't think they're real. I think they're a scam. I think as soon as you say that an NFT or a cryptocurrency or anything could be a store of value, you're missing a very important point. And that point is that it has to be transactable. It has to be, you have to be able to trade it for something more than the greater fool theory. I think it's fascinating to watch as a social phenomenon, though.
Okay, so Keith, how would you respond to what Dennis just said about the greater fool theory?
Yeah.
What's he saying, and what are you countering that with, if anything?
So I think, first of all, Dennis is right to distinguish between different types of crypto asset, and an NFT is a quite unique and distinct thing. It's a single token that the owner, when they own it, is proving ownership of a digital asset that underlies it.
Yeah, but he said it was a scam.
Well,
do you agree that it's a scam, or do you not?
It is definitely both. It is not a scam and it's a scam, because it depends on the digital asset in question and whether there's value in the asset. The token is meaningless because it's just a signal of ownership of an asset. So it really comes down to, it's a scam if the asset's a scam, and it isn't a scam if the asset isn't a scam. So the Beeple digital canvas, I forgot, where they had hundreds of different things on it that sold for 69 million. That would be a difficult conversation whether that's a scam, because, it's no more of a scam than the Mona Lisa is a scam. In that sense, it's somebody believes that piece of art is worth that much, then it is.
Okay, so back to Dennis. Is the Mona Lisa a scam?
Oh no, far from it. I mean, the Mona Lisa doesn't stand as a separate entity. The Mona Lisa is representative of several things, including the Italian Renaissance and Leonardo da Vinci's life, and it's a complete whole body work. What scares me a little bit about crypto, NFT, whatever, is that we're exactly 100 years on from the Roaring 20s, when people traded paper assets to the moon, and one day the bottom fell out.
Okay, Michael, can you give me kind of a what do they call that? The color guy, pardon the expression, in golf.
Hey, we don't go by that anymore. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that was color, not colored.
I'm sorry. I just woke up.
What do they call it now, Brent?
Oh, I was having
analyst?
a little fun. I thought there was an E and a D on the end. That's all.
So-
I was just letting them know we don't do that anymore.
So this has been helpful too.
That
Michael,
was humor. That
hang on a
was a joke.
second. This is called the Gilmore Gang.
Mark should discourse on
You're not gonna like this Uber, moderator role. You're gonna get sick of it quickly, I hope. Michael,
Yeah, I don't like it already, by the way.
excellent.
Well, I think everybody is correct so far. I mean, a thing is worth what people will agree that it's worth. And when people decide that it's not worth anything, it's not worth anything. There were the phrase "not worth a continental." There was currency at the time of the revolution that people traded with, and then they decided there was nothing behind it, and it lost all its value. Stocks go up and stocks go down based on whether people expect they will go up or down. The underlying value is ephemeral. if it's scarce and people want it, the price goes up. So crypto, has this dual role. And for one thing, it's claimed to be a store of value, but it's also it fluctuates a great deal. So it's a risky store of value. It's a speculative store of value. And I think part of what is driving all of this is the fact that during the pandemic, people who had investment assets saw them go up. And now there's a huge amount of money sloshing around with nothing real to buy with it. So where do you put all these assets that you've suddenly accumulated?
You can buy this kazoo for $1 million.
The weird thing about NFT is that it starts out as a digital token that proves that you own something, but as soon as people expect that the value of an NFT will go up, they're willing to pay more for it. So it changes from a proof of ownership to a speculative instrument. And
I did one, by the way.
And I think that people will want to know what it is that they're buying and make an assumption based on what it is that they've bid on. For example, Dave Grohl and Mick Jagger just finished making a song. They just finished making it in the studio. And it was announced yesterday that they're going to put that song up in an NFT auction to raise money for the musicians around the country who are unable to work because of the virus. So what they did was they're going to put it up for auction for, I think, a couple of hours, and it's you get to buy a unique loop from that song that nobody else will own. So I have all along thought, like Dennis, that this is a scam and there's nothing that you're going to get from it that is of value. And then I read this yesterday and I went, that's interesting, because I can actually see that, and I can understand why somebody might want to bid on that and buy that, not just because they get a piece of musical history to hold on to. If you like Dave Grohl, which probably certainly all of us like Mick Jagger, but that you're also helping these musicians around the world. I think it's primarily for America, by the way, who are out of work because of COVID. It all of a sudden it put a face on NFT for me that I hadn't really seen before.
I want to show
Brent,
you a couple.
Brent, does that pass the test for you of NFTs? I don't think you're a big fan, are you?
I think when it comes to that music use case, I think that's why Jack, what's his name, Dorsey, bought Tidal for that kind of purpose. I'm sure there's some good examples like that, but I also think there's probably, for every one good use case, there's probably like 100 ridiculous ones where people are just trying to see what they can get without giving up a damn thing for it.
Can I show you a useless use case? This is my NFT that oh, you can't see it.
Oh, excellent.
That's because you have the blur on.
That
No,
is singularly
you know
useful.
why? Now you can.
It
So
shows
this
you
is-
the approximate value of NFTs.
So this
So
is
where is
Word,
this?
nothing.
Where does this live?
this lives on my hard drive. Actually, it's a Adobe Illustrator original of last week's. That was the week front cover, and I have put an NFT on it and locked up the original. And if somebody pays me 2.5 Ethereum, which is currently $6,000, they can own the original and prove that they're the owner of it. So that is
That's not the only thing they're proving if they do that, but you know.
they're proving
What
that
else
they
are they
love
proving?
Leonardo, and they think that I'm a great artist for putting words on top of his stuff.
How much?
Look, if I'm the
how much
family
can
of
I pay
Leonardo, I'm
to make sure
coming
we don't
after
talk
you.
about this anymore?
Oh, I want to talk about
We
it.
have
I
an
want to talk about it
NFT
some more.
Okay, excellent. Go ahead.
No, Keith Keith just opened up another stream that's fueling this, which has to do with the creator economy. We have a whole bunch of people who are looking for ways to make a living doing creative things, whether it's music or art or making videos. And there are certain paths to supporting yourself doing that stuff. But as with most star systems, there are some people who make a huge income doing that, and a lot of people who are barely getting by. So NFTs come along, and it looks like possibly another stream of revenue for creative people.
I agree with that, Michael. I think that's another sort of epiphany that I had when that story came up around the Mick Jagger, Dave Grohl song, that it felt to me like there was an outlet for the creative community, whether or not it's a real thing. But I mean, I'm struggling with it, like I think Dennis and Brent are, about sort of whether it's a real thing or not. But I can see. I mean, look, I struggled with what Bitcoin was, and I think maybe most of us, except for Keith, did in the beginning. It just didn't feel right, and there is absolutely no doubt that it is a thing now.
Let me just, can I add just one variable to our consideration, which is this. This is BitClout, which is being talked about a lot. Michael Arrington's been talking about it. BitClout is Twitter, but where you have value. So you look here, I posted this front cover there, and somebody has paid $9.40 for shares in me. So if you look at my notifications in BitClout, you know, it'll tell you that somebody bought $10.70 worth of K-tier, somebody bought $5.38 of K-tier, if you can see that. So assigning value to things, creators in this case, is a real thing now.
Yeah.
You know, it's odd that just a few years ago, and I'm sure you all remember this, in the earlier days of social media, there was a website called Clout, which tried to assign value to people, but there was no monetary value. You just got clout points depending on how influential you were across social media. Now there's a way of monetizing clout.
Well,
You know, interestingly enough, the cloud thing,
my basic,
there was a thing that happened back.
Steve, you go first.
I'm just going to keep doing it until I get to say what I think. I think that this entire environment, if you will, and that's putting a nice face on it, is pathetic as it relates to when you have someone like Tucker Carlson trying to convince people that it's a bad idea for them to save their lives. Now, you know, what's the real issue here that is not about making money or speculating on money? What do we do with our lives right now to make a difference about outrageous liars like Tucker Carlson?
Well, this all goes to the idea of the Rococo era that I've mentioned before. I really think we're in a Rococo era where a lot of people think there's nothing important going on, and so we get these frivolous, greatly ornamented ideas and trends that signify nothing.
But there is something terribly important going on, which is that we're reaching another inflection point in the original sin of the U.S., which has to do with the enslavement of Africans and the ideology that was created to support the enslavement of Africans, namely that white people are superior and blacks aren't, and they need to be kept in their place and they need to be exploited. That feeds into all of the police violence that we're seeing. That feeds into the GOP political strategy. That feeds into Tucker Carlson. And
That's
on the other
absolutely
side,
right.
you know, we see forces that are trying to end that stream and that strand in American history.
So when we talk about NFTs, are we basically feeding into the Republican strategy?
No, but
No.
we're talking, the root of all of this is alienation from existing authority structures. That's the root of it. And actually that is on the left and the right. So the right-wing response is white supremacy and Trump. The left-wing response is NFTs, Bitcoin, globalism, and so on. But the common underlying root is alienation with existing authority structures, not believing in the police, not believing in the courts, not believing.
Okay, so what do you do about it?
You have to renew your institutions, not just change parties.
Frank, what do you do about it?
Well, I was actually going to go sort of down the road with Keith about renewing your position in life, but I mean, I don't see if things like Bitcoin and NFTs are on the left and everything else is on the right, it all feels like a big lie on both sides to me. And it seems to me that what you have to do about it is some form of education. And I don't think that it's going to happen overnight. I think it takes a long time.
Well,
You've been in the media business your entire life, and you know, if it's anybody's responsibility, it's the media's responsibility to figure out what to do about this problem. So what do you think that can be done about this problem other than perpetuating it?
well,
I
Steve,
think that one of the things you have to do is to reinstate the fairness doctrine. I think that there are things that happen in the media, which Dennis and I have been talking about, which is say it a lot and show it everywhere. There are these competing forces that are saying it a lot and showing it everywhere, whatever it is on either side of the coin. And it's just making everything much more confusing. And as long as there is no guaranteed fairness doctrine to say, if you're going to say X, then you have to say Y and let that show it for what it is. I think that's one of the things that the media could be done that would allow the media the opportunity to actually do what it used to do, which was to seem fair and balanced.
I disagree with that slightly. I disagree with that slightly because I think that the media allowed itself to be played by bad actors on the right. So the media trying to be fair and neutral and say, well, on the one side, the Democrats say this, on the other side, the Republicans say that. That's part of the problem. There is truth and there are lies, and the media has to get out of the, well, here's what we say and here's what they say, and get into the truth business. I also disagree with Keith that Bitcoin
doesn't do that.
I like
the media. The media is a reflector, not a creator. It reflects what's going on. And it tries to make money by selling you back what's already there. It doesn't try to change you. It tries to reflect you and sell to you. So I think the key here is what represents a likely future and what represents a terrible future. And if you look at these two, to me, not believing in authority structures is logical, rational, and the right intellectual point of view, because the authority structures do suck. So then the question is, what do you replace them with and what's better? And clearly white supremacy isn't. Actually, NFTs and Bitcoin represent a potential nicer future. So I'm not seeing them as equals at all. I don't think they're equivalents.
Well, I disagree that the Bitcoin side is the left. I think that the Biden side is the left. I mean, you either have individual actors who grab their guns and insist that they are the right because they are individuals and there is no collective responsibility, or you have people who grab their Bitcoins and say we're all individuals and we're creating our own individualistic future. Those are both different reflections of the right. I think what I just let me get to the end of this. What the Biden team is trying to do is reestablish the legitimacy of government as a collective force to influence the shape of the world, and that's where that's where the battle is right now.
let's have a dialogue because
Is that so bad?
I think there's something key in what you just said. I'm not a believer in individualism either, but I think there's a big difference between individualism and decentralization and collective trust that doesn't require actually trusting the people. In other words, there's something in decentralization which is collective.
There is, but I mean, if you look at the the infrastructure or the jobs program that Biden is proposing, how do you get there other than through the government? How do you get broadband everywhere? There are places where it's profitable to get broadband. I have broadband because someone can make money from it. But how do you get broadband everywhere? How do you get roads everywhere? You know, if there are toll roads, there's some people going to invest in making roads, but to serve the common, you need a government. You need a collective. You can't do it just by individual market forces and the invisible hand of the market.
I would say that the internet and Bitcoin are both examples of where the collective is implicit in the infrastructure without having to give power to anyone.
Yes, but the foundation of the internet was government investment, wasn't it? It didn't come out of DARPA.
Initially, the science came out of DARPA, but the business of the internet didn't.
I just think that this is, sort of spun off into this theoretical discussion about something that I asked a very specific question, which is, what do we do about the complicity of the media? That's what I was asking Frank, and
Regulate it.
he passed. Well, you passed the buck. You basically said, "Well, it's not the job of journalists to do this." I heard what he said. I'm trying to keep this focused on something that doesn't. I mean, Keith's abstract assessment of this is, I'm sure it's interesting, but it fogs the mind for me about what are we going to do about this problem right now.
Well,
Who
can I answer?
is- Yeah,
Can I-
problem.
Can I give you an idea?
yes, go ahead.
This whole media problem has been described by Paul Krugman as both sidesism, which means basically, one side says this, the other side says no, and you have this back and forth. And pretty soon, very quickly, you're no longer covering the issue. You're covering the controversy about the issue. And if you go back in history, I've read articles about this, that style of journalism replaced more research-based investigative journalism right around the same time when broadcasting budgets, news budgets were getting slashed to help make the bottom line look better for the networks. So I think what I've seen in the press in the last week has been instrumental or instructive. There was an article in the Times about billionaires buying newspapers, whether it's the Los Angeles Times, or I think there's a play on right now for in Chicago for the Tribune companies. Boston Globe was purchased about a decade ago by a private equity fund guy named John Henry. Time magazine.
LA Times.
Time magazine was purchased by a person we all know. The point is that journalism, because of the internet, can't make money the way it used to, and larger, wealthier people or organizations have begun setting up business models that don't require profit. They require break even to enable the journalistic organizations to do their work. And some of those organizations have begun hiring more people to do the kind of journalism that used to be journalism.
So the big companies, the ones who are the recipients of the largesse, the most money from the advertisers, are actually the ones who are to blame in this. If you were to say that the media is the problem, it's part of the media that is the problem. It's not all of the media that is the problem.
Yeah, there was another article in the Times this week about the fact that something we all know, that conservative media baits the race wars or other social culture war issues to get small donors, small people to pay attention, to watch Fox News, and at the same time, they maintain their margins in the national legislature and pass on tax cuts to the big guys. So it's a very remunerating process, and it's killing our democracy.
To me, the
big
media
guys
is a
also
bit-
have the big guys also have lobbyists. You know, the NBC and ABC and CBS and Fox and they have, and CNN, they have lobbyists. They're up on the hill trying to do things that will benefit them.
If you look at
local stations,
Frank, if you look at what we're doing here on this show, we and many others like us are now media. The influence of the mainstream media was always exaggerated, and it's been in decline for at least 25 years, as Dennis pointed out, because of the internet. And the power of us as individuals has increased as the tools that we have to do things like this have got to free or close to free. And so the idea that Fox News created the Trump base is the opposite of the truth. The Trump base created Fox News. That's the right way around.
Okay, stop. Hold on right there. Dennis, do you agree with that?
I almost agree with it. I think the people who created Fox News are the, please stop it, quiet. I don't know if you
How
can.
I feel exactly.
No habla inglés.
So the people that created Fox News are the viewers, the millions of people who tune in, but they're too disorganized as a rabble to do anything other than break things down. So that they needed a seed crystal. They needed leadership, and they got that from the Republican Party of the last 20 or 30 years.
Right, but
I think that,
but
yeah,
Keith's,
I think that,
hang on a second, please. Keith's thesis was that that now that everything is approaching free, that all these individuals now have increased power. Do you agree with that?
No.
Okay, good.
I don't agree either. I don't
Everything's
agree
pretty-
either.
Excellent.
It's the large numbers that matter.
well, the other thing that Keith said was that it wasn't Fox News that created the Trump base, but the Trump base created Fox News. And I think that both of those are right, and neither of them is right. It is a feedback loop. What Fox News does is express and focus and amplify a sentiment, which then increases the sentiment. So, did
So
Rush
do you
Limbaugh
agree-
create his audience, or did his audience find Rush Limbaugh?
Do you
It turns
agree,
out to be both.
Michael? Do you agree with the thesis that there's power in this new technology, or do you agree with what Frank and Dennis say, which is no?
I have to go to the middle again.
I'm not
I have to go to the
suggesting
middle
that
again.
there's
Look, we all
no
remember.
power. Yes, exactly.
We all remember when there was a nightly news on 3 different networks. And we all remember when there were mass market magazines, Life, Look, Saturday Evening Post.
Colliers.
Those are all
God,
Colliers. I mean, all of that world is kind of fractured and fragmented. And so, yeah, the big networks aren't as big as they used to, and they have much less clout than they used to, but they still have more clout than I do. They still have more clout than Frank does. Frank had more power when he worked for them than he does now.
But I would
You
say
bet.
that if you stop thinking of the general population as a whole, and you start thinking of influencers and groups. Like I listen to a few podcasts now that dominate the time that I spend on any media. And those things didn't even exist before. So listening to, let's say, Chamath Palihapitiya talk about SPACs, or listening to some of the people talking about the Coinbase, Andreessen Horowitz, for example, did a thing this week, and so did Gary Tan, one of their early investors. My inputs are not any longer coming from either TV or the New York Times, although some of them do. On balance, it's less and less. I do agree that the power of things like this is latent, as in it's an inherent potential and only realizes its full potential in certain people at certain times. Like Kara Swisher right now is riding a high and has a very big audience. But it's different. You've got to admit it's not the same media at all that used to exist.
I think
There's one other stream. There's one other important stream that we are not looking at, and that is the street. BLM is not a media phenomenon; it's a street phenomenon. The organizers who flipped Georgia were not media; they were organizers who worked the street. Black Voters Matter is a real phenomenon that has real influence and that managed to flip a state. Stacey Abrams and her organization managed to flip the state. So there are lots of streams playing here. It's not all media. It's not all government.
Well, I agree with that. I totally agree with that, that it's not just media, or it's not even media, or it's not media at all. So there are two sides to this discussion, and what we're missing is the middle of what's actually happening, which is there are new power brokers that are going to design that world that Frank referred to as the three networks and the most trusted man or woman in America. That model is happening. It's just not happening in what people think of as the media. It's Andreessen Horowitz. I mean, Keith's newsletter this week is full of all this Coinbase stuff, right? Andreessen Horowitz has doubled their value as a result of the Coinbase rollout. Now, that may stick or it may not stick, but their strategy of basically going direct to the media, becoming the media,
and direct to the NASDAQ, by the way, without going through the bank.
Is technology the new media?
No, what I'm trying to say here is, while we're arguing on the edges of this discussion, back and forth, black and white, all of that, in the meantime, there are people making a lot of money. And those people are gaining power and influence. And the only way that these new technologies have a chance of being helpful to ordinary people is if they can expose, illustrate, communicate what's going on that is changing the balance of power.
Well, Steve, I think you're missing one point. And that is that what you're describing is a logical evolution within a stable society. But if Keith's right, that there's a breakdown in authority on both the left and the right, the conditions are becoming riper for revolution. Now, I'm not saying a violent revolution, but I am saying that these are prerequisites for revolutionary change.
Well, I think we're in a constant state of revolution. So I agree with you, and I don't understand why we continue to ignore the centers of power and influence that are developing.
But I think what
it's
Dennis
not
means
a question
Dennis,
of it's not a question of either or journalism. It's not I mean, when Mike Harrington started writing about what he thought and turned that into TechCrunch, he was basically saying, here's the media, we're the media. And then there was a pushback against that. And then eventually it became a bunch of startups that actually are producing tools, Substack, Clubhouse, all of these media technologies are producing the ability for anybody to project themselves out. That doesn't mean that the big players aren't going to be having a big part of it. Look at Clubhouse. It's an Andreessen Horowitz phenomenon. To put this at the level of is this the precursor of a revolution? Yeah, of course it is. But that revolution, where's the revolution playing out? And what are you going to do about this? Are we just going to sit there and be consumers of this back and forth, or are we going to congeal into interest groups that tend to have more power?
I would say, Steve, that when Dennis talks about revolution, he literally means a social revolution in the classic sense of 1900 Europe. That is to say,
The 1960s America.
a breakdown of authority structures such that you have to reinvent new authority structures that are.
What part of what's going on is not a breakdown of the power structure? I mean, that's okay. So we're in the revolution; it's already happening.
So now you have to start to pick what you want the future to look like. That's your job, is to pick, because there are many potential futures and there's no inevitability about any outcome. So you're saying pick one. What is it do you think is going to happen, and when's it going to happen? How long do I have to invest in your vision of the immediate near future? Well, I think you have to start
black and white.
You have to.
Yeah, I'm asking black and white.
I would
enough
say,
already of the back and forth. I want to hear some people laying down some bets.
So legitimacy of any structure requires two things. The first, it requires economic plenty, so that there is no competition over resources. That seems to be on track. AI is going to help drive that as well. And then the second thing it requires is legitimacy of actual structures, which decentralization and localness in a globalized context seem to be the two sides of that human beings will embrace. This nationalism is a reaction against globalism, as is racism, by the way. And it seems to me that globalism is inherently progressive, but it needs to have localness, which is where decentralization comes in.
Okay, we're back to that construct that you've
structures.
Okay, Brent, do you buy that?
I don't know. I don't know if I do. I think there's two things that have kind of driven the whole system in this country. It's power. Well, maybe it's more than that. It's power, money, or maybe it's just power and money, and information. And some folks who have little of either, they're not going to do any better than they have in the past. It's getting, we talk about all this technology is it's all over the place and easily accessible. I don't think it is. I think it's just like anything else. Most of it is concentrated in the hands of a few, just like money is concentrated in the hands of the few. And I've been watching and I've been trying to figure out a way to segue to this. I think maybe one of the examples of all that we just talked about is somebody just mentioned AI. And I just watched this really great documentary on Netflix called Coded Bias. And it was focused on the facial recognition technology and how it was being rolled out as something that, everybody will have access to, and it'll help, from a security standpoint, it'll help, facial recognition. You can use that as your security pass or all that stuff. But the problem of it it was developed by a few people from a very small demographic, and it was being basically forced on all of us. And there's a certain segment of the population where it didn't work. They couldn't determine who this a darker complected person is. And part of the reason why it's because it was developed by just a fraction of our population. And that fraction of a population has probably had some subconscious biases that or lack of experience in diversity, and they're the ones developing it for the masses. So yeah, the masses have the available to use it, but it's being the powers behind who's developing it.
Correct.
And I think that has not changed. At least it hasn't changed yet. Maybe it will, but right now, everything that we're talking about is usually developed in a very small demographic and pushed out for the masses to use. And some of them will get some good benefit out of that and use it effectively. But once again, that's a small fraction of the folks who are going to have the end result of that use, compared to being able to develop it and have a little bit of control and say so, which then allows them to have a little bit more power over it. I don't see that. I haven't seen that changing.
Brent, what about rap? Rap was bottoms up street music that ended up taking over the entire music business. So the decentralization and power, if it attracts the masses, ends up changing the center.
Once again, when rap got started, it got started in the streets. And look, I'm not the expert of what happened, but I grew up with hip hop and rap, and so I know a little bit about it from a certain perspective. The folks who got the money were a very small group of people, and the folks who own the owned the record labels, not a guy signed for his own record label, which basically means he was doing a Donald Trump marketing thing, which is like Trump steaks. He wasn't raising cattle. He was just having his name put on Trump steak. That's how a lot of those record labels really existed. It was some big, powerful company that gave a guy the ability to say, I got a record label and sign up acts. He wasn't signing up acts for himself. He was signing up for the company. So the money was still in a small group, small hands, compared to the folks that are actually making the music.
But that's a good example. By the way,
the two biggest producers of rap music in the beginning were Rubin and Cohen. Those guys, that was where it all came from, and that was before there was a Rockefeller company, or before there was
Diddy. All those guys,
or Diddy. And at the time, Diddy was an intern in the studio where Leor Cohen and Rubin were making their first records with those guys. So whether it was Run DMC or LL Cool J or the Beastie Boys, which, by the way, weren't real street.
So that's a good example of how the business is made by the street. Even though it was Rubin and Cohen, they were clever enough to smell the coffee, and they were able to bring money to the party and encapsulate what was happening and own a big piece of it. But they only could do that because it was happening. If it wasn't happening, they couldn't have done it. Now, roll the clock forward. Look at what Taylor Swift is doing with her remake of her album. She is now saying, so this conflict, it's the class struggle in art between the creators and the owners, is eternal, but the stick is bending massively to the creators now.
Yeah, but let's look at Netflix and all the content that's being created on Netflix, all the different shows that we all watch, movies, shows, whatever. There's so much of it. It's fragmenting the market. I mean, any one of those creators, it's great that they're able to get their stuff created, but how big of an audience can they really create? Because it's a constant no stop, total new shows coming out every second. So somebody it's great that they're able to get a show, but can they really build a huge following that could rival anything
Well,
that will
no,
allow
but
them to
that's
have a
using that.
significant
You're
Well,
budget?
actually, Brent, there is something happening right now that kind of goes right to that point, and that is, for example, the biggest single new series in terms of how much they're going to pay for it. I think it's Netflix, it could be Amazon. I'm not 100% sure. Is the new Lord of the Rings series that they are sinking in the largest amount of money that has ever been spent on a series in history to do
yeah,
this.
but
Why would they do that?
what Brent is
That's a
saying?
known
going to be
quantity
the-
there.
No, Brent,
Yeah.
what I think, Brent, I'm going to accuse you of using 19th century framework to measure 21st century reality. I don't.
Am I a
think-
Rococo guy then? Am
I
I a
don't-
Rococo?
You might be. I don't think. If I knew what it meant, I'd say yes or no. But here's what I think. I think success is no longer about who gets the biggest audience or the most money. That's the measure of 19th century art, media, entertainment. The new measure is influence. And I would argue that Scott Galloway, who doesn't probably have a lot of money, has massive influence these days. And that is because of all this new stuff. Some of the Scandinavian detective shows that are on Netflix that don't make a lot of money are grabbing a lot of attention because they're really good. And so I think even though you're right that there's still these concentrations of power and money, those are not going to be symbolic of the future. They're symbolic of the past as it still exists.
They're symbolic of the past and the future.
Yeah, it's a
I think we
pendulum,
will never get away from a star system and a hit system. There will be things that grab wide attention and things that grab less attention. When Chris Anderson wrote about the long tail, he pointed out that there are titles and artists that sell a lot of units, and then there's a long tail of many titles and artists that sell few units. Now, there's probably more volume in the long tail than there is in the front of the parade where you have the big hits. But if you're living out in the long tail, you probably aren't earning enough to pay your mortgage. However, if
Or you're
you are
dead.
the platform that supports the entire long tail, you're doing very well. So
Yeah.
if you happen to be Amazon, having all these titles for sale, if you happen to be Netflix, having all these titles available, you're doing very well. Some people will be making big livings, and some people will be getting by, and some people will be wondering where their next meal is coming from. That's not going to change.
And some will be famous after they're dead, like Leonardo.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he didn't starve when he was alive either. I mean, he
he
didn't
had
make a lot of money
benefactors.
compared to what people make today when they make a lot of money, but he probably had a six-figure
Okay, Van Gogh.
income, the equivalent of a six-figure
Van
income.
Gogh.
I don't know.
But you're right. The key question is, put it this way. I don't think the key question is how do you make money when the answer has to be something to do with the media you create or the tools you use. I think there's many ways to make money without you having to make it directly. Like if we all got paid on this show, that would be directly. But we all figure out our lives, and this show is an enhancement to our lives, hopefully. But it isn't. We don't do it to make money, but it helps us make money. I'm sure. I know for me, for sure, it does.
I'm still waiting on the check from Gilmore Group Media.
How about the mug?
Yeah.
Forget the check.
Yeah,
How about the
t-shirt?
mug?
What about the T-shirt? We never got the T-shirt.
Yeah, me too. When you get yours, Brent, please let me know so that I can find out who sent the check.
Look, there's no doubt that that the technology has created. It seems like every single day something new comes out that will allow people to get onto these platforms and express themselves and either make money or make comments that make people change opinion. And it's the influencer culture. Dennis and I we're actually having a conversation offline or online, offline, about how, you know, the one thing that is the common denominator in all of this is the technology. And I stated I thought that influencers have always been able to influence, influencers can influence better because of the tools. And Dennis points out that influencers have always been able to influence even without the tools. So, I mean, that's part of this whole left and right conversation that we keep having here about this right now.
Yeah, that's the enemy, is back and forth, back and forth. I've heard a couple of people on this show within the last 20 minutes actually say what they think is going to happen. I would say that Brent, I've heard from, Keith, I've heard from, Dennis. I think that he may have an opinion about this, but I haven't heard it.
In line with what I was talking about the Rococo era, eras of great ostentation are followed by revolutions and neorealism. So I'm very optimistic that we're entering an era of neorealism. And I think, I don't know if it was Keith or Michael or Frank that was talking about it, but yeah, I think it was Michael. The whole direction of the Biden administration seems to be to regenerate faith in government and government's ability to do big things, which is, I think, fundamental to that revolutionary idea of you know, participating again and dealing with reality instead of rumors and QAnon theories.
So let me inject one piece of signal that I've noticed, which is the delta between people's fear of what Trump is doing and the reality of who cares. And it seems to be that who cares is growing. You know, every time he says something, or his lieutenants like Tucker Carlson say something, there's a general, you know, anti-reaction to the gambit. But the net balance is that those people that feel that it's a good idea to avoid the vaccine, they don't grow in numbers. Now, I know there may be people on the show that think that the big lie perpetuates more and more people falling into chaos, but I'm not one of them. I think that there's a general entropy at work here, which factors into what Dennis is talking about the hope and promise of the Biden revolution. You know, there's a shift in power, as Tina just said, away from nihilism and toward just plain, yeah, I hear you, but I don't like what you're saying. I don't like how you're saying it. I'm going to go with rational, fact-based, emotionally connected information. And those are the winners that are going to inherit the power.
I
Yes,
agree that they're going to inherit the power, but the thing never lose sight of is this: the diminishing Republican power, the diminishing Trump base is on its way out, but they're not equally distributed across the population. They are in pockets where they remain the majority. So in gerrymandered districts and in red states, they still can influence the shape of the government in ways that are disproportionate to their overall numbers.
But take a look at the corporate reaction. It's not growing necessarily, but it is compensating for what you just said. I make buying decisions based on certain I want to know what I want to know. I want to see what I want to see. I'm interested in this slippers and not that, et cetera. But if I have to make a choice between where those slippers came from, and if I have a real choice, I'm going to go with the choice that corresponds more to my sense of what's right in the world.
So
And
I just heard that Costco is going to be carrying the My Pillow. Should I stop going to Costco?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I'd
Costco
make
already.
sure not to go down that aisle for sure. I'm going to stand by the TV sets and wait for the masks to be put back on. Is that an answer? What are we afraid of? I mean, there are a lot of bad actors out there, and they're scary. But what are we afraid of?
Nothing. If you go back to what we were talking about after the election, we said very straight that Trump was going to begin losing power. His power was going to be evaporating, is what I said, and that has continued to happen.
That's right. That's right. So how
Is-
come we're not hearing about that? How come Brian Williams is not? Why is he not talking about that?
Who keeps data on that? I mean, you keep.
I see it every day. I see
You know what? There is data.
commentary about that.
There is data on that, but you have to be a savvy consumer to pull it all together. There was a poll, I think it was a Gallup poll about a week ago, that said more people identify as Democrats today than Republicans by a margin of 49 to 40. So it's out there. Maybe nobody's putting it into a tidy bundle to put on the evening news, but it's out there if you're a good consumer.
Well, if we're going to be making investments in imaginary art, maybe we should choose between two vendors, one of which is selling imaginary art that I like, not the art, but the person, and the one that I don't like. I'm not buying Tucker Carlson. I don't watch him, and I don't want to see him. And I think he's absolutely the most reprehensible journalist I've ever,
Yeah. Well,
yeah. So I'm not supporting that.
Well, guess what? I don't know about you, but I have a limited amount of investable assets, and I'm not putting it in that stuff. I'm putting it into windmills and solar panels.
And
And
there you go.
I'm making money.
All right. So Brent's got a hard stop in just a few minutes. So let's go around the horn and starting with whoever wants to say it, maybe Brent. What are you investing in?
Video equipment,
How come?
so I can be as good as Keith and look as good as Keith.
So
Never
if he
gonna
puts
happen,
the 4
Brent.
cameras, then you have to go. So it's an arms race.
If it's an arms race, I'll win. Trust me.
Yeah, I figured that much.
Yeah.
But it isn't, because I've gone the other way. I sold all my Canon lenses, my Canon cameras. I'm down to one camera now that isn't an iPhone, photo camera, I mean.
So what are you investing in, Keith?
I'm mainly investing in Keith by doing all the things I do. But then I did buy 100 Coinbase shares when it got to 328 the other day.
Michael?
I'm investing in fertilizer, seeds, and soil. Grow in my garden.
I also do that, actually.
So do you think that's helping the seed industry or?
Well, it's helping. It's helping a couple of local merchants, for sure. I don't know about the whole industry, but I'm helping to support some local merchants who deal with garden supplies.
Frank?
Vanguard Information Technology Fund.
What does that mean?
It's a technology that relates to information gathering and dissemination, and it's a fund that puts many of those positions together, like any other fund.
What are the top 3 companies in that fund?
Well, let's see. It's funny you should ask, because I was just looking at that. So, a company called PayPal is one of them. Arlo Technologies is one of them. I can tell you some of the others. Box Inc. is one of them. GoDaddy is one of them. Square is one of them. Lumentum Holding. There's a number of holding companies that are involved in it as well. So it's pretty well-known stuff.
Okay, great. Dennis, what are you investing in?
One of my sons is moving to Vermont. I'm thinking about following him and building a house.
Wow.
Then I will do what Michael does, and I will buy a lot of seeds and fertilizer.
What's the broadband situation like in Vermont?
Depends on the town, but southern Vermont, where we're looking, is pretty good. We can still do the show.
Excellent. Is there anybody that I have overlooked?
You.
Well,
Ah, sorry.
What?
You're looking at it. What do you mean? What am I investing in? What the hell is this?
You're investing in us? Is that what you just said? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I think that's part of
Well,
it.
then where the hell's our T-shirt?
You gotta join BitClout. Join BitClout.
As soon as you
and
get
then
the
you'll
T-shirt,
value-
let me know how you got it and who it was sent from. I know
Make
where
my
they
own
come
T-shirt.
from. The producer.
Oh my God.
Where?
All right.
Hey, you know what they used to say to me when I was a producer? You're the producer. Produce.
Well, there you go. See that? How much how many NFTs can I get for that? This is an original
Be
because
surprised.
it's already fading and it isn't shipped yet. And when it is shipped,
If you
they're all gone.
if you
I thought
believe in
it-
what Keith has to say, you probably can put that up as a something that will actually generate some revenue.
Only a picture of it. Only a picture of it. You can't.
But we're not looking for revenue. We're looking for change and influence and power.
Correct.
Well, that's what we are.
Well, instead of asking about NFTs, I thought you were going to ask how many FTGs do you want to?
What? What does that mean?
FTGs?
what's an FTG?
The first word is something I can't say, but the second word is to, and the third word is give.
Oh, as in,
Well, I'll look at the
Okay.
tape. Maybe
Let's
it'll
put a
be
period on that, Caesar.
okay. So I feel better, I guess. Can I go back to not being moderator, please?
Yes, please do.
Thank
Whatever
you.
you want. It's your
You were
show.
nasty, man. Yeah, but he was nasty.
I know.
because-
I don't want to do this. But, you know, I think that if we have another discussion about what we've talked about today, it's going to be our fault.
Can I do a shout out to Nikki Haley? She does one of the best back moonwalks I've ever seen. She keeps going back and forth. Actually, she's like a living pendulum. She says one thing and then she looks over and didn't get the response she was expecting. Then she goes right back to the other thing.
Well, I think all those people that are worried about what Trump is going to say or do are missing the fundamental point.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Trump
That I
is
think we
over.
could probably, we all agree on that.
Yeah.
Yes, but none of us live in that universe, so it's a very
Well,
strange universe.
speak for yourself. I mean, Brent's right there in the middle of that universe.
He's on an island. He's not in the. He's geographically he may be, but
I'm hunkered down.
Well, we're going to our South Carolina house in the near future to visit. And we do live in the middle of this. And I think we're all not on an island. We're all in the middle of this situation, and Zoom is bringing us all together in a way that maybe we don't like it or we're tired of it, but it's still, it's ours to lose what's going on here right now.
I'm looking forward to going to New York after a year of being locked down here in the UK next week, and I'm planning on staying there for 3 months. I think it'll be interesting to see if I actually do stay there for 3 months, if I stick it out, or if there will be a reason for me not to want to stick it out.
Thanks, Brent.
See you,
Hi,
Brent.
Brent.
See you
So-
next
Bye,
week.
Brent.
So, Frank, you're a lover of humidity, no doubt.
Right now, it's raining in New York, and it's cold.
But it's
I
going to
don't know
be,
what
if
it's
you're
gonna
there
be.
for 3 months, don't you get into the August period or not?
Yeah, I'm going to come back around the beginning of August. So so I leave at the end of next week, and then I'm coming back at the end of the first week of August. So I'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how things are there. Things
Dennis
are
is
open.
falling as-
Restaurants
Dennis is falling as-
inside are open.
No, I just yawned. Frank, you'll be in New York right in time for Shakespeare in the Park, which is about the only socially distanced theater that we'll be having.
Well, actually, there's a very interesting thing that Lincoln Center is putting out. It's like AstroTurf all over the public areas so that they can have during the summer events outside.
That'll take care of the potholes.
I think they're going to close down a lot of streets, and I'm looking forward to that. They've already done that on the Upper West Side on West End Avenue, where they've closed it off for events and restaurants that have put their seating outside. It's apparently, it's not the same city it was when I left.
Collaboration.
I'll also be in New York for the primary,
Yeah,
the mayoral primary.
yeah.
Right. Well,
I have my choice. I have my choice for that already, and I'm going to vote for my guy. So I get to go back and do that.
not Maya Rudolph. Was that her name?
Is she running?
Yeah.
How about
You mean the Saturday
Andrew
Night Live
Yang is
actress?
running. What?
I know Andrew Yang is, and Andrew Yang is the one that I'm pretty interested in. I want to go and listen to some of the things he has to say.
You should read Krugman's column today in the Times about Yang.
What does he say?
He says Yang's idea about universal basic income doesn't add up. He said Yang hasn't done his math homework.
That's because he doesn't understand consumer monetary theory. He's living in this world of inflation and printing money that is no longer relevant.
Who is he?
Well, then he should get
Krugman.
involved in cryptocurrency.
So the messenger is the one that's wrong. Not
See, it's
not,
the media's fault. It's the media's fault. That's
But
what I said.
Don't do that.
Yang isn't fully right either, but Krugman's critique is based on traditional economics that don't apply anymore.
Every few years they tell us something doesn't apply anymore, and then we go down the road a bit and something bites us in the ass and we say, oh, that'll
applies.
Well, he needs to answer what's going to happen when there are no jobs, but people still need to eat.
and where would the jobs go?
To automation.
Yeah, where does the money come from to
Automation.
pay for the people?
Well, one of the things.
It's not
one of the
automation. Somebody said it's not the automation, it's the Chinese.
It's the Chinese, not automation, that's getting our jobs.
It
So
will be. It's going to be.
So in the whole revolutionary context that we've been talking about, it strikes me that the pendulum for exporting jobs has probably run its course and it's swinging back. And Biden's already talking about domestic content legislation. So I'm not
Even the word exporting is a 19th century construct. We're in a global world now. There's no exporting. There's just the world, and nations are irrelevant more and more.
Well, I think Mr. Trump showed us that there really is a wall, and exports and imports, and countries do have borders. Ask the Chinese about all the tariffs he put down on them.
I'm only winding you up so that Steve starts to get worried about next week's show.
Yeah.
No, I'm worried about last week's show.
Last
Oh, that
week's
is
show
so
is
last
in the
week.
can.
What?
It's in the can, isn't it? The trash can, I think.
It was your fault, Frank. So, just deal with it.
I look, you know
You
what? I admit it.
apologized for it. You're still
Yep.
apologizing for it.
Yeah, I admit it. I am sorry about that. But
No,
there's things to talk about.
I take quite a bit of the blame, Frank.
As well, you should, Keith.
As long as we're talking about digital transformation, I should point out that one at the foundation of all digital technology is one thing, and that's Gates.
Or as Steve calls it, imaginary.
You mean Matt Gates?
Digital is imaginary.
Yeah, that's the other Gates.
Yeah.
Matt Gates?
I didn't understand what you were just trying to say there, Michael.
It was a pun.
I get that
I
part.
was slipping through a forbidden word.
What, Bill Gates?
No, Logic Gates.
Watergates. Thank you.
M1.
Not
Gate
funny,
arrays.
Ben. Still not funny.
Okay, guys. I'll see you later. I
All right, so
will
we're not going to be
be
doing a show next week.
By the way, we're still the show's still live. We haven't finished yet. Just so you know, Frank.
I'm aware of that.
I-
I'm trying to shut it down.
I was just going to say
I'm
I will not be
having a good
here.
time.
I won't be here for next Friday's show. So if you guys need,
Right, you'll be in the
some-
air. So we either have to move it or lose it.
Yeah, but if you need me to throw out some starters, like some treats, like we give our cats and dogs, just let me know and I'll throw some starters out your way.
Right. From 37,000 feet, right?
37,000 feet. Yeah. Well, listen, British Airways has full band Wi-Fi. I'm all over it.
Well,
I don't know if I can
Tina
do
has a
video
doctor's
from the plane.
appointment, so we're not going to do it at that time because when she's not there, we're not on the air.
Ooh, that rhymed.
Okay. I want to thank Tina Chase Gilmore, our producer and director.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tina.
Your lovely show. I liked it.
I want to thank Brent Leary, who's off saving the world somewhere. I want to thank Michael Markman.
I want to thank you. I want to thank everyone.
I want to thank me. Thanks, Steve. A little
Thanks,
harsh,
Steve.
a little bit, too angry, but
We'll
it was
tune you
okay.
down. It's okay.
It wasn't great. It sucked. I want to thank Keith Tier.
I was awesome. I've invested a lot in myself in the last hour and a half.
I want to thank Frank
Are
Riley.
you buying your own NFTs, Keith? Is that what you're doing?
It's the only way to get them
To boost
sold.
the price up?
You gotta find some
Someone's
stooge
buying
for
them.
69
Someone's
million.
buying them, Frank. I don't know who. I'm
Uh,
going to do every front cover of every newsletter as unique. And 20 years from now, they might be worth something. My kids can, spend the money.
I'm sure they're
It's a
going to
long
be
tail.
excited about that bet.
Yeah, and it's the long tail.
Okay.
By the way, it
Frank,
costs
Frank,
about, it costs
Excuse
about
me.
$100 to make one. So if you don't at least sell it for $100, you're losing money.
At least.
Okay.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you. I didn't really say anything worth much today, but at least I said stuff.
Do you really believe that?
I feel odd about what's happened to the media and journalism. I just feel really torn, and every time I talk about it or think about it or write about it, it's like I go, what did we do to this? What did we do to this? This wasn't the fault of journalism. It wasn't the fault of the reporters.
It's the
I
fault
don't know.
of decentralization of power.
Yeah, and that all started with Ronald Reagan, didn't it? So anyway,
I'm not talking about the electricity grid when I say that.
anyway, I'm just torn about it, and every time we talk about it, it just makes me have more questions. And I don't know how it gets fixed other than doing things like we're doing. But will that actually matter? I don't know, because it doesn't have the reach and it doesn't have the frequency, Dennis.
The secret is all about
Hang on a
finding.
sec. I don't want to start the show again.
Yeah.
Finish your thought.
Okay. Anyway,
Right.
that's really it. I'm just worried. And I mean, look, there are hopeful signs, and we are one of those hopeful signs. Substack, review, those newsletters that we're doing, that seem to have some traction. It's not like, it was when the three networks had 25 or 30 million viewers each a night, accounting to 90 million viewers a night times 7 nights a week. Those days are gone. But even with those days gone, they're still up in the 20s and 30 millions combined, just among the 5 networks as they stand right now. That is hard to compete with. Anyway, there you go. I got nothing else.
Just take a look at the Andreessen Horowitz ledger, and who have they invested in? Clubhouse, Substack, Coinbase.
Yeah.
Okay. Dennis, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Next time, maybe we could talk about coronaviruses, adenoviruses, and blood clots. There's a story there.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about coronavirus in Iran, because I have a relative that just tested positive, and we're freaking out because there is nobody getting a vaccine in Iran except for the mullahs. Anyway, sorry to end it there.
Thanks to everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time.
Down with the mullahs.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.